Welcome to the Troy Kearns podcast, where we talk all things real estate, business, and entrepreneurship. Today, I have a very special friend of ours, Melissa Lawler Johnson, the Fancy Flower Farmer, who I've actually been following for over a year now. Melissa, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming here. Can you talk about who you are, what you do, and why you're called the Fancy Flower Farmer?
So it's been an odyssey at our place. And when we purchased our home 10 and a half years ago, it was almost at a foreclosure level. Like when we came in, there was no grass, weeds everywhere.
Wow.
The house was in great condition, but they hadn't really done very much with the yard. There was very, very minimal plantings across the front of the yard, which in some of my pictures, you can see some of the large arborvitae that are in the front of the house, the boxwood.
Arborvitae?
Arborvitae, yes.
What is that?
They're just very large evergreens that are beautiful, conical shaped. They kind of keep their shape. 5 feet wide. Wow. I've gone over this for your place. So looking at different evergreens to put there. But so those were there, but there wasn't really anything else. And I was right in a period of time where I just had my first son, and I was pregnant again with my second son. So for the first few years we were there, my husband wanted to clear. And if you go to my page, Fancy Flower Farmer on Instagram, I have a highlight that is before and afters, which is amazing to look at, because the before and afters, a lot of them are from when we first moved in, to like see the status of what was going on there. And so it started, I always have loved plants. I've had plants in college. I mean, my mother was a huge gardener, my grandparents. So I've always been around it, but I was not the one actually, masterminding everything. So when we started with this house, it started with very simple things like, replacing a boxwood or putting in a new tree. And so it just kind of grew from that. I fell into some hard times where I suffered terrible depression with different losses that we had in our family.
Oh, wow.
And so that really kind of shook me bad. And I was I remember just sitting and being like, why can't I be creative? I want to be creative. I don't know how to draw. I don't know how to mold things. I don't know how to do anything, but I knew that somewhere I needed some outlet for creativity.
Right.
And so it's just wild how things happen. And I haven't told this story in so long, but it's wild how things happen, because when I said I'm very OCD.
Right.
And so when I would look out my windows and see someone else's trailer or a boat, it would make me spiral, like legitimately spiral.
Are you related to a lady I know very well called Kearns?
She's wonderful, I heard. I looked at it this way. My husband and I were young when we bought our house. We were 32 years old. We didn't really know what was going on. And we worked so hard, we still work so hard to keep this house and keep the property and keep everything doing. So to look outside and see someone's boat in my front yard, because everybody would just park things or make burn piles and things like that. Right. And they would put them on the property line. So in this beautiful 40-acre neighborhood with only a few homes, at the time we moved in, there were only 3 homes there.
Right.
So it was just expansive and beautiful, and there are all these views, and then you'd see a burn pile.
Right.
Or trash in the back corner. And so, I would spiral, and I would tell my husband, that's it. I have to learn we have to cover this. Like, how can we do this? And I didn't want to put fencing up because I maintain an acre of manicured land, and I didn't want fences everywhere.
Right.
So I said, how can I do this? So I started with just small baby steps. And then one day I went to Lowe's, and I was leaving Lowe's, and I had come up upon that they have this rack there. They used to call it the manager's rack. I don't know what they call it now, but it was this rack that would have like $1, $3, and $5 plants. Right. I mean, and they just needed water and a little bit of love. You know what I mean? They were in fine shape. So I would visit Lowe's almost every day and just start like kind of picking things. And I did buy some things that were regular or whatever, but most of it, I got just the thrill of a bargain, in these plants, the thrill.
I love that.
So one day I said to myself, I wonder, and I was obsessed with hydrangea. My mother had some hydrangea. One of my girlfriends up the street had a bunch of hydrangea. And I said, I need hydrangea on this property. So I went to Lowe's and I said to the manager or whoever was out in the nursery, I said, if I buy 5 hydrangea, will you cut me a deal? And she said, well, sure, I'll give you 50% off if you buy 5. So then I load up my 5 hydrangea, and that same day, and now mind you, this is right after I was literally hands and knees, like, please give me guidance. Like, I need something or I'm going to go crazy.
Can we go a little bit back on that?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, because I think that a lot of people, I know a lot of people I know, I've certainly been depressed before when I was coming over my alcohol issue. So when you're in that spot in your life, it's a scary spot.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, just to kind of fill you in, both of my parents died in a plane crash.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Visiting me here, right up at the airport, the airport Wheeler. So they had come here. That was in 2013.
Okay.
And so I was 8 months pregnant, almost 8 months pregnant with my second son. They were visiting my 19-month-old. And we had a beautiful trip. Everything was wonderful. And I had beautiful parents. They were very involved, very, just really wonderful people. And always had a great time with them. And my father had just bought a new plane because he wanted something a little faster so that he could make it here to Kansas City in less time to see his grandkids. And so they were here, and they left out on a Sunday afternoon, and I never saw them again.
Oh, wow.
And so when things like that happen to you, that just completely, it's such a profound moment in your life.
Right.
And I lost my two best friends, just like that.
Wow.
So waking up in the morning, and I'll never forget it, I woke up the next morning, I'm like, oh my God, I'm an orphan. Like, I don't have any parents.
Wow.
You know what I mean? It was just like the craziest mix of emotions of everything. And then forget the fact I'm pregnant. You know what I mean? I'm like awaiting my second child. This should be a happy moment. And so months and months went on. I delivered my second baby, healthy, happy. Everything was, still very painful, but like happy. It was like this weird mix of, happy but really sad, and like really in just a destructive, horrible place of trying to do anything to find happiness. And I was very overweight after my second, and I was just solid depression. I mean, just solid. There was no happiness,
Just your state of mind.
Yeah, overall, just everything. I felt like, I always told people, I felt like I was walking around with a massive cloud over top of me.
Right.
That no matter what happened, it was raining outside.
Right.
You could never have a good day because it was lightning and raining and clouding outside, you know?
You just felt like you didn't deserve this. This just happened out of the blue. And
oh my God, for sure. To a family that's always done everything to be good to other people.
Right.
To be kind, to live by the virtue, treat others the way you want to be treated. Like all the things our parents taught us is everything I come from a family of four, the four of us siblings, and then forget it, just reeling with all four of my siblings. I mean, because that was the craziest thing. Like you would have a day where you would feel like everything was somewhat okay. Right. And then my sister's hysterical. And then we're hysterical on the phone. And then the day is over. You know what I mean? The day's ruined. So I remember just sitting there thinking, I don't have anything that makes me happy. Like, what makes me happy?
Right.
Like, I have nothing for me. I have my children. I have my husband. I have my family.
Right.
We're in Kansas City with no family here.
Right.
I have fourth cousins that live further south, but unfortunately, we don't get to see them very often.
And fourth cousins are not that close.
Well, yeah. And unfortunately enough, they're wonderful people, and I get to see them occasionally. But it's not like having your sister down the street or your mother or your father, you know what I mean? Or cousins or, things that are people that are really close and in your daily life, you know? So I remember that being a very profound moment to also being like, what am I doing here? We came here for my husband's job, and we thought our life started to flourish. We bought our house and our first home, and we were having kids and opportunities, and it just felt like it's in that same trajectory as your younger life where you can have bad days and whatnot, but there's always such good opportunity coming and just life. The wonders of life are just swirling around you in all these different ways and giving you things to look forward to.
For sure.
And here I am sitting here thinking, what am I going to do? I mean, how in the world am I going to be happy again? And so I slowly started to lose weight, which helped a lot because I was very overweight. So losing the weight.
How much, you say very overweight?
I was 250 pounds when I delivered my second son. And it was just a lot of poor choices. A lot of, doing things when I was pregnant, saying, oh, I have to eat bread because I'm nauseous. Oh, I have to go do a ultrasound. The baby needs to move. I'll stop at Starbucks. You know what I mean? Things like that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm not a Starbucks fan, so I support that.
But just doing things I had no business doing, that I knew as a person who does gain weight easily. I'm Italian. You know what I mean? Like we eat sugar, we look at sugar, you gain weight. So just doing things like that, I just knew I shouldn't be doing some of those things. And I was doing them and then forget it out of depression. After that happened, I just couldn't shake this. And I felt badly about myself. It was hard for me to move. I was very just, in a really, like literally the worst point of my life,
Right. And so now you're probably the opposite of the worst point of your life. Like the way I see you.
I mean, Instagram's, the social media is a crazy thing. And that was something else too. After everything had happened with my parents, I couldn't go on social media. I had to completely withdraw from my Facebook account because I couldn't watch people with their grandkids. I couldn't watch my friends with their parents. I couldn't do it. It killed my soul. Right. And so I said, you know what? I got to stop. But I love social media. I'm a very social person. I love to be out. I love to meet people, to know people. So then I kind of said to myself, so then I was at Lowe's that day and after this whole epiphany of just, and I truly believe in this, just the praying for guidance and, ask, believe, receive, all those things. And like just putting the good karma out there, continuing to do that and paying attention to the signs, because that is one thing after my parents passing, and grandparents after that and aunts and uncles. And all kinds of craziness had come up within such a short period of time.
Testing you.
Testing
you.
And so I just said, I will not let this break me. And that was another thing. My mom was a little firecracker, and nothing could break this woman.
I can tell.
She was the fire.
Yeah,
she was like the force.
You might have got some of it.
I hope to God you're from your lips to God's ears. So she was a force. And I just said she would never want me or my father to be sitting here, boo-hoo, poor me. Never.
Right.
And so I went to Lowe's that day, and this is where it kind of all started. I heard the loss prevention manager complaining about people coming in and they were like slicing the bags of mulch open and then going up to the front counter and being like, oh, well, this is open, because they knew that they would discount it.
Right.
And so he was like on fire about it. And so I just like looked at him really funnily and I was like, you give him hell, just like that. And so he started laughing at me. And so we started talking, and I had these 5 hydrangea and this and that. And I said, and it was in July, it gets very hot here in Kansas City in July. And so I just said to him, I said, I'm trying to do some landscaping. I've got some eyesores I'm trying to cover, but I'm like new to all this and I don't know what I'm doing. And he was like, well, if you can hang on, soon we're going to be marking everything down in here because it's so hot. We clear it out because we can't maintain it.
Right.
So that being said, a time or two later that I'd gone, I left with truckloads of plants.
Right.
And it's all just very organic how it all happened, because I started doing things. My husband all these years had been clearing the trees, and he was very into the grass and like getting grass to grow everywhere. So as soon as I started coming home, needing a shovel to dig up the grass to then plant plants, he would freak out and be like, you're killing all my grass. You're taking my grass. Meanwhile, we have an acre of the grass. 7.5 or 8.5 acres total.
The fool.
Yes. So what happened was
the woman's always right. Okay, like let's get clued in with that to begin with. Like the woman is always right in the relationship.
I need to make sure he listens to this.
Well, no, I'm gonna tell you, even if you're right, guys, they're right. Okay, just shut up, because the battle that you're gonna face afterwards isn't worth you being right.
Yeah.
So you might as well let them be right.
Yeah. Basically.
And they were already in the first place.
Well, he used to always complain and like make comments about things. And then one time I had my grandparents in town and my aunt was here, and she's a workhorse. And I wanted to do the whole side of the property, which is in a lot of my pictures. I had one big side that there was a burn pile back there and, just things I wanted to block. So I told my grandparents, I said, we're doing this in one day. We're going to bang out 100 feet of bed when he's at work.
And you and Eden are going to be close to each other?
What's that?
You and Eden are going to be close to each other. This is going to be crazy. I feel like you got so much freaking energy. It's hard to imagine that you were overweight at any point in time. You've got such a positive vibe. I'm feeling it just like right across the room from you. I want to take a deep dive real quick, and I want to take sidetrack just a little bit, because where you're at today, for those of you guys who are not following Melissa, you definitely need to follow her on Instagram. She's got an amazing profile. Like, she's given us a ton of insight about planning, but you're like sponsored by a ton of people. Like, one of my favorite sponsorships, like, it's amazing, the people who follow you. I'm interested in that giraffe. I think it's
giraffe tools. Yeah. They're wonderful. Yeah.
Yes. So talk to me about how you've come from building the farm out from digging in your husband's grass, who he should have let you in the first place, right? To now basically you're like a sponsor. You're like somebody who helps other people get their farm started, get their garden started. You have like a park in your yard.
Thank you.
How'd you get there?
So it has all built organically and just one step to the next. Like for instance, that day that I was going to do the bed, I had realized I could pull rock from the back of the property. So when I was on the back of the property, I realized there were huge pieces of rock. Well, someone like me looks at that and I'm like, I want to edge out all my beds in this gorgeous native rock. And that's all the edging. Every single piece of rock that you see around every single bed in that house or in our property was pulled by my hands. And then I would have, the other thing too, which I always tell people to do this. I could not have done everything I did on my property without the help of, there was a 16-year-old kid up the street. And I said to him, do you want to come help me? I need someone to help me dig holes. I need someone to help me, carry mulch and do this and that. And he was instrumental in helping me do the things that as, an aging, woman, I can't do. I can't be.
You're aging just fine.
Thank you. But I can't be. I can't be shoveling and doing things on my back. And,
Right.
I'm not as strong as, so he was with me for 5-6 years of this. And
What was
his name is McKeegan Needham. And I always tell him that this is the house that Melissa and McKeegan built, because we did all of these things and it was just, we knew nothing. Like, he helped me with all the trails in the back, keeping everything maintained, keeping everything cleaned up. And so now he's gone. He's graduated college. And he's an engineer for the DOT here in Missouri.
Wow.
And it's just a wonderful young man that I owe so much of this to, because my husband's very busy. He works a very tedious job. And so he's not around to help me do these kind of things, So I had to find resources, and doing something as simple as that allowed this kid, who would have had to go somewhere else to get a job, to work small amounts of hours for me throughout the week or on projects, to be able to get things done and even just maintained. Now that everything is built, I'm the one that maintains everything. So I do that myself, but it was, I can say, much easier and much more enjoyable when I had someone else. And not only that, but I think it's also the accountability, because then he would show up. So things I knew I had to do, where now I'm kind of like, I really don't want to do that.
Right.
So then I don't.
And he's there.
And I'm paying him. He's checking in. I've got to do something,
So that excuse can't be like, well, I have to. And you're like, he's here.
Yeah. It's like, okay, let's get this done. So
I never asked you this. I don't know if I've seen this on your profile too much. Do you have a vegetable garden as well?
So here's my thing with the vegetables. To have and maintain a vegetable garden is a big deal. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of paying a lot of attention. And so I kind of came to, first of all, I didn't want the eyesore of a vegetable garden in my garden. That was number one. Number two, I just kind of said to myself, there's a farmer's market right up the street. Luckily, we have amazing Amish vegetables that come down to us from Jamesport. So they come down and they're there and they have absolutely amazing things. And so I've always kind of been a patron to them. And then I kind of said, well, I have to pick. It's got to be one or the other, because I can't manage this yard and all of the ornamental and do the garden at this point with kids. And now how busy life has become, especially post-COVID. I feel like everybody's the busiest they've ever been.
Right, totally.
Just taking on way too much, overcommitted. So I had to kind of do that. So I have done container gardening, where I will grow vegetables and different things, tomatoes and cucumbers and things like that in containers. But even that, I kind of was like, I'm killing myself every day managing this stuff, when I can go up the street and get perfect things that will be great for my family. So that was kind of the trade-off. Now, will that change in the future? I don't know, maybe. But for right now, I'm just so in love with just the park. I love walking back there and seeing everything be in its place.
Your yard is an inspiration to myself included. I remember when we talked to you before we even moved out here, and you and Eden instantly hit it off. You were like, just go out there and start planting stuff.
Yeah.
Just go out there and start. And so we've planted like 64 trees out there.
It.
And it's really rewarding. I didn't even know what an Iowa hydrant was, but I've got a bunch of them now, because I know I need to water them a lot more than I was doing. But so for people out there who are like, I think that what I'm drawing from our conversation is that your garden gave you peace.
Absolutely.
And I think that, I follow a couple guys on TikTok, that guy who's always coming in and he's like, you got lemon seeds right now. You want to turn it into a lemon tree? All you got to do is do this, throw it in your backside, get it damp, and then you plant them in there and you're good to go. And I'm like, that's cool. Watching something grow that you put in there. As I drive by, and I was telling Denver this when we were filming the other day, I was like, I hand dug these holes. I can't wait till 25 years passes and say, I planted that tree.
Yeah.
And I think that's the rewarding thing about gardening that makes me happy, makes you happy.
Sure.
And talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So coming from a family, my mother's backyard is phenomenal, beautiful, and she did all of that herself. And I grew up, watching her stand outside endlessly watering plants. And, this is before everybody had drip line and, sprinkler systems. And so when I would do these things, I just felt such a sense of peace. And there is something to be said about just having your bare hands in the dirt, in the air, the air around you, the smell of fresh cut grass, the smell of spring, the smell of those things. Just makes you realize we're really small, and the things that we worry about really are insignificant.
Right.
And there's much more to this life than, our random little problems.
Right.
And so and that's the other thing, watching everything grow. So season to season, just watching how everything fills in and how nature is so observant and peaceful within itself.
Right.
So like if you plant a tree right here, but then you've got something really close, which I am terrible at doing. I have so many plants that are way too close together, but to see how they all just harmonically and methodically just grow together.
Right.
And there's no fighting. This one kind of slopes this way. This one comes in this way. It's just
Right.
like nature just works together. And the force of Mother Nature, that's the one thing I've learned too in the last 10 and a half years of being in this property is just the one thing you cannot control is Mother Nature. And the minute you try to control her, that's when you have tons of problems. And so I'm coming out of right now, I've posted about it quite a bit, is that I was having a terrible thrip problem. I brought plants in. Thrips? They're horrible. They're a very common bug, but what was happening on my property that just now I've been able to actually understand all of this, I have a grass company that comes in and they would spray.
Right.
And they would spray for the different things and, do the bagworm or the grubs and different controls and fertilizers and things like that to keep the grass, together. Well, at one point they were like, well, we can spray your beds. And so I said, well, that's great because I'm in these beds. I don't want the spiders. I don't want, any bugs.
You don't like bugs?
No, I'm not a bug person. However, I do now, which is, whatever. It's kind of crazy how that all switched. Because now I'm like,
what's your favorite bug?
Bring me the assassin bugs. They'll sting you, but bring me the assassin bugs. Like, that's what I want. So I was on this crazy binge of buying plants, off Etsy.
So you're on a bender buying plants.
Oh, benders. Yeah, that's why I have like 150 houseplants. I mean, this is how these things happen. Out of depression, I was like hoarding plants, because
Right.
it felt good to buy a new plant and then take
Right.
care of it and watch
Better
it grow
than
and be
alcohol.
beautiful. Yes, for sure. It was definitely, everybody's got a fix, right? So
Right.
this became my fix of
Right.
like just wanting these plants. So I brought a plant in and I put it out on my back patio I guess it would be 3 springs ago. And I saw these bugs on there and I'm thinking, and so I look them up. It says it's a greenhouse thrip. I'm like, okay, it's never going to live in, Missouri. It won't make it through the winter. No thing. I had done a couple treatments of different things, but I really wasn't worried about it.
Right.
They got down from that back balcony. They went down into the plants on the base and they eventually spread throughout my entire property.
Wow.
So as of this past year, I was out spraying almost daily. I was doing all this stuff. Well, the craziest part was
You're like the government.
Kind of 8.5 acres. So when I was spraying and doing all these things, I was thinking, why aren't these things dying? Like they
Right.
were relentless, So over the last year, I kind of said, you know what? I'm done with the spraying, the pesticides. I'm done with doing all this. I said, I'm going to give this to God. I am going to run with Mother Nature instead of fight her.
Right. Don't
and
fight
try
her.
and control this.
Right.
And so I stopped with all the pesticides, which over time, over a year's time, a lot of the pesticides break down. They're gone.
Right.
So early this spring, I said, I'm only going to treat if it's absolutely necessary. I called the Department of Agriculture this spring. I called the Missouri Department of Conservation. I was on the phone with both of them, told them everything, the whole story, the good, the bad, the ugly, admitted all the guilt, and said, you've got to help me with this because this means too much to me. It means too much to me to have this go down every single season because what happens is these thrips, one of them can make 80 eggs, so you have tons of them. They're multiplying. They love flower blooms. So then they would get in all the blooms and essentially they just defoliate your plant. So they'll eat away at the plant. So if you ever see
Defoliate.
the leaves will fall. The foliage of the plant will fall.
Cool.
So what happens is if you ever see plants, and this is my big PSA, if you ever see plants that are getting kind of like a soot-looking, silvery look to them with an undertone of a mustard color,
Right.
you must check that. And not only check it, but like immediately look at the leaves. All you have to do with a lot of these plants is just observe. That's it. And you'll see if there's problems. And so by looking at that, when the bottom leaves were doing that, and they always start at the bottom. So when you see that at the bottom, especially hydrangea, they love hydrangea. I have 130 hydrangea on my property. So
That's it?
I know, well, all right. Next time I come back, it's going to be 200. So just paying attention to things like that. What happened was I was spraying and having them come in and spray. Well, what that did was it killed all my beneficial insects. And then the thrips were able to morph and be able to
Right.
accept the different types of
So
chemicals.
you killed the predator of the thrip.
Yes, I killed them all. There was
Right.
nothing in my garden. Like you would
Except
go
for the
in
one
there.
that can last.
Yeah, except for the one that has, the power. So
Right.
this year, what happened was the thrips were out and crazy in the spring. I was very calm and patient with this. And so I treated just the blooms of the iris. They were getting onto all the iris. I treated the blooms of the iris with powdered 7. Because that was something that with the Department of Conservation Agriculture, we decided that was the best way of doing this because it will kill them on contact.
Right.
A lot of different things that you do, they have to ingest them or it has to, wear down the shell of their body, things like that. This was on contact. And it was only for a small amount of things then that I had to treat. So I treated those things.
Right.
And then it was crazy because a few weeks after that, I was kind of, again, walking the perimeter, checking everything out. And I'm seeing ladybug larvae, and I'm seeing assassin bugs, and I'm seeing praying mantis. And so they were coming back.
Bugs have great names, don't you think, Melissa?
Yeah,
like
cool.
assassin bug,
Yeah.
praying mantis.
It's crazy. And it's crazy because now that these things are in my garden, the thrips are almost gone. I mean,
Mother Nature.
And they're going to be there because it's a common bug, right?
Right.
Around the whole world, right?
Right.
The thrips are everywhere. There's like 5,000 species or something crazy of them. So they're there, but I feel like when I finally gave up and was like, I'm not going to fight you anymore. Just give me the signs on what I should be to be doing this. And then that's when I said, well, maybe I should call the Department of Conservation. Maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that. And so I just made the steps to do those things and not fight it.
What did the Department of Agriculture say?
Well, essentially, I told them it was hilarious because they were like, well, have you tried this? Have you tried this? Have you tried that? Have you tried this? And I mean, it was like this laundry, and I had done it all.
Right.
You know, I had just
You're
like
like, yeah,
literally done
check,
it all.
check.
Because I was fighting so hard, I said, you know what, if I just really put my best foot forward. Well, the problem is when you're fighting something so hard, and Petra Tools at the time didn't have the cart sprayer. So I was putting a 4-gallon backpack on my back, you know, every day and
Was
going
it that
out
Swedish
and spraying.
brand, the big red one?
No. Petra Tools is orange and a clear, and it's a one. They have commercial line sprayers, so the sprayer was phenomenal, but it was so heavy. So since they've sent me one on a cart that I can just load up on and then just pull around with me, and I can treat my property. So that has helped a lot. Also, it taught me all these different things about the different types of treatments and different tools and techniques that I had, because now that I'm armed with all those stuff to be able to fight it in a good way, then I'm able to, you know, do a more efficient and effective job of taking care of them.
So what's a typical day, Melissa, look like in your garden? Like, how much time are you spending on this thing, in this thing? And then when did the social media, because you've got like a lot of followers. You got like, what, like 10,000?
A little over 9,000. So,
Yeah.
and all of it's been completely organically. And that started from stopping the Facebook. Because when I stopped the Facebook with my personal page, then I said, I still want a way to be able to like reach out to people. What do I love to do? So then this was all firing up. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start a page that's just about flowers. And I'm only following people that are just about flowers, so that when I open up my page, I'm not seeing Jane with her grandparents. You know what I mean? I'm seeing hydrangea and tips and tricks and all the things. So I started that page in 2017. It was, I think, April 1st or May 1st of 2017, I started that page. You know, I just said, I'm not doing this for anything other than, at that point, with everything I'd gone through, I said, I want something my kids can have. You know, I want something that, if God forbid, I just had a friend at the time my age, lost her to ovarian cancer. And I said, if something happened to me right now, like, there's no way my kids will know who I am. I hadn't been on camera because I was so overweight. I would not take pictures. There was nothing. So I was like, how am I going to do this? And so then starting that gave me just such an amazing outlet. And then meeting all these incredible people. I mean, so many people that I've become genuinely good friends with through social media.
Well, that's how we met.
Yeah, absolutely. So just, you know, meeting people and learning together all the different crazy things that happen in this life and how we can kind of navigate it leaning on each other. So
I think that's great advice. You know, there's a couple questions I wanted to ask you. So one of the things that I talk about a lot to the people, you know, most of the people who listen to this show are high skewing males, which is great to have a dynamic woman like yourself, Melissa.
Thank you.
One of the things I always try to do is, like, you know, there's all these side hustles out there. Like, there's ways to make money. You talked about the gentleman who helped you out, the young guy who helped you out. I always say, you know what, if you want a side hustle, start a garden, start this, help people mow lawns. Would you say that there's a lot of people who don't want to mow their lawns, that they could actually make money?
Well, what's insane to me is that people don't want to mow their lawns, to be honest.
Right.
So I had a service for the longest time. We had someone coming out to mow the lawn. And then little things would happen, like if it's too wet and you turn on a 0 turn, you tear the grass.
Right.
So then these guys would come and, you know, their job is to get in and out as quickly as they can. And don't get me wrong, I adore these guys and I'm still friends with them to this day. They're great people and they do a phenomenal job.
Right.
But it got to a point where I just said to my husband, we're spending all this money every week on mowing and I want to do this. I want to do my own stripes.
Right.
And he was like, you're crazy. He was like, who are you? You know, we moved from like Boca Raton / Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Right.
You know, he's like, who are you? And I'm like, this is the root of me. I grew up like this. You know, this
you're
is
coming
how
back
I
to
grew
your
up.
childhood.
I'm coming back to my roots and it feels really good.
Right.
And I'm like, I want to mow. And so he still was like, no. And I just went and I bought a mower. So I went and I bought a Skag mower, which I'm a huge Skag
I'm
lover.
thinking about getting a Skag.
Get it. You won't be disappointed. They stripe like no other. They are just wonderful, wonderful mowers.
We're going to be hanging out a lot.
Definitely. I'm going to come mow your lawn.
I'm going to be fighting you for that opportunity. We've got a good amount of acreage, and I'm kind of trying to model. I want to come and check out your property before I do that. But I think it's so cool that you've become like the garden has symbolized this piece. And one of the things I really liked that you just said was that you only follow people that you want to hear from. And I think that's important because it's like how you program your brain, right? Like if you're listening to garbage all day about people complaining, about people showing off their fancy stuff that you don't care about, but you're into this peace of mind place where gardening is your serenity,
where it's inspiration.
Right.
Every time I open up my Instagram, something hits me and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Wow, that's beautiful. Wow, that's a miracle. Things like that. And that's a much better way to be. I cannot handle some of these other, occasionally I'll check Facebook because I have to.
Right.
And I go in there and it's like, I leave with anxiety.
Right.
I mean, just anxiety.
Right.
I mean, it's just so much in this world that's negative that people love to feed on instead of thinking about how can I live and be positive? Like how can I put myself in a positive headspace? Well, I will promise you every day you wake up and you go outside and you witness the miracle of God on this earth and all these beautiful things that are natural mysteries and watch them and watch the seasons of life.
Right.
When you watch season to season and how the whole earth transforms season to season.
Right.
It's just so fulfilling and so satisfying.
Right. And it kind of symbolizes, like you said, seasons of life. And it's cool that you mentioned, it's funny because as you talk about something for your kids and something that you're proud of and all of this stuff, a lot of the conversations I've had with my wife and I'm like, we're digging these holes and we're taking these pictures. I'm like, this is something that I'm proud of. Like it's
absolutely.
My grandfather was a landscaper for his whole life. He stopped landscaping at 83 years old. He died at 86. And I really believe if he kept landscaping, he probably would have lived to 100. I mean, it's something that he lived. I tried to fight my wife to name my first son Wendell, and now it's Conrad Wendell Kearns, not Wendell, because she thought he would get teased in school. But that was my grandfather's name, and he inspired. That's where I believe I got a lot of my hard work ethic, where my mom got her hard work ethic. I emptied out his entire truck, which was all his debris, which was like one of those lift gates, back in the day after church.
Absolutely.
And so I just think it's kind of like we talk about the circles of life with gardening and stuff, but like eventually we go back to we start as children, we grow up as adults, and we kind of come back to wanting to be children again. Yeah. And then we eventually, when we really get old, we become children. Like we are like not able to take care of ourselves anymore. Sure. So there's a lot of parallels between gardening and Mother Nature and how we can heal ourselves. I kind of is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I used to cut my grandfather's lawn for $20. He would pay me to cut his lawn, and he was very crazy about the stripes.
Right.
He wanted portfolio stripes, like perfectly lined back and forth, and I would push mow some of it, and then I would be on the mower, and he built this huge contraption on the back of his mower that was like a big canister of sorts. And I would empty that canister. I mean, I was like 11, 12 years old when I started mowing for him, and I mowed, but it's hilarious.
Those two little buckets that used to fill up with grass?
This was a huge canister, about 5 or 6 feet high, because he had built this thing. This is before they had any of that kind of stuff. Okay. This is 30, years ago. So he built this contraption that would the vacuum would suck in and then drop it into this massive canister. And then I'd have to take the canister and dump. Now I know you don't ever take your grass clippings away. Grass clippings always go back in
because it's natural fertilizer.
Feed, absolutely. But it's really hilarious because he's still alive, thank God. And he was a huge gardener. Yeah, my mom's parents are still alive.
How old are they?
They are 84 and 85. And I talk to them every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. I'm constantly giving them garden tours and taking them on FaceTime to see different things because it makes me so proud to be able to show him. And he loves my stripes. Like he loves the stripes in the lawn. He loves that he was the one that kind of stoked that fire.
Right, for sure.
And the landscaping in general. They had a beautiful home that he built. He built the house with his own 2 hands with his father. And then he landscaped everything. He built his pool. He did all these crazy things. So for him to be able to see how doing simple things like edging the rocks and, coming up with all these different ideas with the beds and that's the thing people would say to me, like, how do you envision that? Like, how did you decide to do this over there or do that over there? And it's just crazy because I just said it just came to me, You know,
Right.
it's just all of these things. I have not had to try for any of this. You know, it's just everything so easily happened for the first time in my life. It just happened. And still to this day, like a typical day is really, I mean, really right now I battle the weeds more than anything. Just having so many beds, and
all
then the
battle
tree
the
line.
weeds.
Yeah. The tree line on the back is a killer. I mean, you know, other than that, I mean, it's really very low maintenance. I do all my own edging. I mean, so I you know, kind of get the edger out and just kind of whip around everything and clean it all up. And, you know, but I think the biggest thing is like, you know, doing things like the mulch and, you know, keeping that up to speed and keeping the beds cleaned up is the biggest fight that I have right now.
Can we get to know Melissa prior to Fancy Flower Farmer? When you originally grew up and you went to college, did you go to college?
Yes, I went to Lynn University in Boca Raton, Florida.
In Boca Raton, Florida. You told me prior to the show you're from Ohio.
Yes, I was born in Ohio, Youngstown, Ohio, and then moved when I was 18 to Florida. Went to school at Lynn University. I studied international business, and loved it, and went and, you know, took different trips to China and Singapore for class credit, which then was amazing. So then that kind of stoked a bit of a fire, because then I wanted to do my MBA. Did my MBA in Paris, France. So lived in Paris for a year, a little over a year.
Parlez-vous français?
Mais oui, un petit peu, like just a little bit. As soon as it as soon as it started to click, I said to my parents, because my program was over, and I was like, I think I want to stay. And my dad's like, no, you're not staying. If you're not on that plane, I'm coming to get you, because they knew if I stayed, I was probably never coming back. You know.
Right.
So I came back, and I started a small embroidery business with my brother and my sisters. And we started it out of my parents' house. And I was 24 years old when I came back. And so started it, we called it the office ottoman, because it was an ottoman that was in the family room that had my computer and all my notes and all my stuff, you know? And so, yeah, started that, did that for a while. And then we sold that business to Blue Ocean Press in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
So you sold an embroidery business to, that's
so
pretty awesome.
My sister was working, I, along with my younger sister, were really active in the business every day. We were day to day there. My brother was doing other things. He was working up actually in Lynn University. And my other sister started working at this Blue Ocean Press. Well, they were doing a ton of signage and promotional items and things like that. Tchotchkes, yes, which we had actually started at our place. So we were doing embroidery, silk screening, all in-house. We had a little warehouse. We did all these orders, but we were doing the embroidery orders for Blue Ocean Press. They had a large pediatric client at the time that needed the scrubs to have the name and the logo.
Right.
So we started with them. We became very close with the owner, still very close to this day. And when it kind of got a little too difficult for the four of us to manage it, other people wanted to do other things. It was this, that, whatever. He was like, I'll buy it. So he bought that. I then went to Blue Ocean Press, and then I sold promotional items until I moved here. Then since we've moved here, you know, obviously it's very difficult to do that kind of thing when you're not in someone's face and taking them out to dinner and going to lunch.
Yeah.
So a lot of that has fallen off. And that was another big one of my things. I want to work. I want to feel productive. I want to do those things. And so my business had kind of like fallen off. And I'm like, what am I going to do for a job? You know, I'm in Kansas City, Missouri. I sold promotional items. I'm a marketing person.
Right.
You know, I still do work for Blue Ocean. I handle his website and newsletters and social media. So it's just funny how things have happened, because when you talk about sponsors, you know, there are sponsors now that pay me to do a variety of different things for them. A podcast is coming, you know, very soon, different things like that, that is slowly morphing my career. And that was the next thing that I've been praying for, is just give me a sign of what I'm supposed to do on this earth. And I want it to be something good, you know, something that I can give back.
I think you're going to be the next, I don't know who it is, those people on television who used to have the shows, the gardening shows.
Oh, I would love that.
I think that's what's going to happen.
I would love that. Well, I do have to tell you, in high school, I was most likely to have a talk show. So
I mean, I'm seeing it coming now.
It's all full circle. You know, the Liberty Leopards class in 1997, they got it right.
All right. So we're talking about sponsorship opportunities, and I think that's cool. You just started getting into your passion, what you love now, your thing to get you off of your depression. Obviously, that was a huge thing that happened to you, and anybody can identify with that.
Sure, absolutely.
That's going to crush you. And then you fall in love with this, and now it presents all these financial opportunities because you put it out there.
Yeah, and product opportunities. I mean, I started having companies that they would reach out to me and just say, hey, if we send you, you know, $600 worth of flowers, will you put them in your yard and take pictures? And I'm like, absolutely, you know. So it just kind of went. I've got multiple different companies that send me things. And then obviously I work very closely with Petra Tools, and they started with the sprayer. They're like, hey, do you need a sprayer? Do you need this? Do you need that? And I became like really close with them, where we would then kind of bounce things off each other. I was like, hey, I'm having this threat problem. I'm having this. They were like, hey, try this, try that. Let's do this, let's do that. And so just kind of learning the different products and the different opportunities. I mean, Vigo Garden I did a raised gardening bed with them. Giraffe Tools, the hose reel.
Can we talk more about Giraffe Tools?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just for my selfish purposes only.
Yeah, of course.
Like, that was like one of the coolest videos I seen. I was like, I need to get one of those things. So what does Giraffe Tools produce? So
they produce very high-end like hose reels. Primarily, they have a lot of different items, but what struck me with them was how nice the hose reels and the functionality. So a lot of people are doing the retractable hose reel, which is a big deal. If you're watering like in a big backyard like mine, I need 150 feet of hose,
right,
to make it to the end of the yard to do spot watering in the summer. If you plant a new plant, you've got to have a way to reach those things.
Right.
So I thought the hose reel was just, brilliant. It takes it's 130 feet of hose that it'll take on that one reel that's very well made, stainless steel, never going to rust, never going to rot. It's going to be on the back of that house, forever.
What do those items cost?
To be honest, I don't have an exact cost. I want to say they're $2.99 or $1.99, something like that. So yeah, not bad for the use and for the longevity of, an item like that. So
when did people start to come to you and say, hey, Melissa, we really like what you're doing. Would you be willing to post this? When did that start happening?
That started, I want to say maybe like 2.5, 3 years ago. So, and it was just wild to me because I would say to them, I'm like, I don't have that big of a page. Like, I don't have like 100,000 followers.
So you're almost like trying to tell these people you don't want
well, it was crazy because I didn't want to let anybody down. I was kind of like, well, I don't know if you want me to, I'm happy to do it. But they were like, no, we're not, we want the quality. They're like, we want quality content. And that's another thing with my OCD and the craziness. Like, that's been part of my problem with my growth on Instagram, because I will not just post anything.
Right.
I can't do it. I physically, like mentally, I cannot just
click post. We just talked about that before the show. You said you posted something with a wrong spelling the other day.
Oh, and it tears me up. Yeah, it tears me up. So if you look on my page, I wanted my page to be a reflection of who I am and what I'm doing, and not just this monstrosity of 7,000 posts and getting lost in things.
Right.
So if I have to sacrifice the growth for that, which has been a huge sacrifice, because I started with other people that I'm friendly with that started, and they post a lot more than me, and they're 40,000 followers, things like that. But also the idea of this whole Instagram thing, because I know there's a lot of smoke and mirrors with the social media stuff.
Yeah, buying followers.
Absolutely, which I have never done and never will do. And that was one thing I said. I'm like, I don't care if I don't ever surpass 1,000 followers. I will never purchase a follower. Right. So just doing things like where everything is just simple, right? I'm just going out in my yard. Right. I'm doing the things that I love. And if I happen to take a great picture that I feel like is okay for my OCD to check it off and post it, then it gets posted. Doing the videos, and I had to battle this. And this is what I was just talking to Petra Tools about the other day, because like they want me to do these different things and do the Amazon videos and do the, talk show stuff. And I told them, I said, they've really helped pull me out of my shell a little bit more, because I was so afraid to post, where now I have to post. You know what I mean?
Why are you not on TikTok?
So I am on TikTok, but I need to be more. That's the problem with this social media stuff. Everything is so difficult. Everything is so intricate. Like It's not just a simple, okay, click here and post across the platforms and make it simple on yourself. It's an hour or two figuring out how to post this stuff.
Right.
And that's where it really kind of trips me up, because it's a huge job, to do this and do it well, where you're cross-checking everything, and what you're writing is to the hashtags, and the hashtags of this and that. And so that's, back to the smoke and mirrors. I just had to tell myself, like, I'm going to take it at my own pace. Right. I'm going to do my own thing. Right. And just, I cannot pay attention to what anybody else is doing. Right. I was doing it, and that's what I always remind myself. I was doing this as something for my children. So if I keep that focus and I do it, then the quality is there. And it seems that the people that I work the closest with now don't care about the numbers, and even though numbers are fine, like I have great engagement,
right.
But it's been hard the last, 6 months to a year. There's been a lot of stuff going on with Instagram that has made it incredibly difficult, which, is one of the things I always try and tell people. If you like what people are doing, and I'm not even saying this for myself, if something that someone is doing inspires you, helps you, subscribe, like, comment, save. That is
on this podcast, on this video right now. Subscribe, like, give us a 5-star
Absolutely.
review. It totally helps the algorithm.
The algorithm. And that's the thing. It's like, so for us to go through things where you're spending hours and hours and hours filming, editing, putting things together to then post it, to have them show it to 10% of your followers, where if those 10% are not actively engaged in it,
Right.
then it falls flat. You know, so I'm always trying to tell people, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not even saying this for me. I'm saying this for if you're following someone that you really like and if they're valuable to you, then the least that we're asking that you do is click like or save. Or if you don't want anybody to see what you're doing, then send it to someone or save it. You know, you can at least save at a minimum, which will then help the algorithm. The watch again, like when you're watching a reel, to click watch again if it's something you want to do. You know, I found that with the things that I do, the things that really perform are time lapses. People love a time lapse because it satisfies our inattention. Right. So you're able to sit there and just quickly, it's moving so fast.
It's all pattern interruption.
Yeah. You don't even think to go off of it because your intrigue is telling you, wait, it's coming so fast. The end of it's coming so fast. Just wait. So the things that I do, like the balloon thing, I just did a balloon post and it was up over 23,000 views, you know, in a few days. It was a reel. And it was a time lapse where I just did a time lapse. I did a graduation balloon thing and then posted the pictures. But I think because it engaged people so hard, you know, to watch the whole process of me putting this balloon or the charcuterie board. The charcuterie board was another huge one.
Charcuterie, say that 5 times.
Charcuterie, yeah, that's the truth.
Well, that's an excellent segue to talk what Eden wanted me to get you about. She shows me all of your cool stuff that you do. If I miss it, she makes sure I see it. And she's like, you're never going to believe what she goes, I love Melissa. Look at what she did, this cake. And then you're very involved in your kids' school as well.
Absolutely.
Can you talk about that?
So that's been part of this whole thing too. It kind of started with all the flowers and the landscaping. And I said, okay, well, am I meant to go into landscape design? Am I meant to do this? And I kept saying, show me the way.
Right.
Like I'll faithfully walk and I'll do my best for you. But you got to give me something here, you know? So then slowly but surely, all these other massive, like crazy opportunities just kind of came up. And not even opportunities like, it was just an opportunity to make someone's cake, you know, or to someone asked me, hey, can you decorate this or that? And so I wanted to do balloons for my kids. I'm president of PTO, which I take very seriously. I'm going into my 3rd year as president, 4th year.
I don't think anybody's got a shot running against you.
Well,
good luck.
And I was very dedicated to that. In the last 3 years, I've raised $76,000 as a fundraising chairperson for our school with my team. And it takes a village. I've got a group of wonderful women that we have all come together to do this, not only me. So, but yeah, so we made it this huge effort. And so we were rewarding the kids to do, for a tier that they achieved on the fundraiser, to do an inflatable recess outside, an inflatable recess. So I said, how fun would it be if we put some balloons up at the front door, at the front entrance?
Right.
Well, I called and got a quote on those balloons, and they wanted $800 to put a balloon arch in.
Yeah.
That was it. And this is what I love about all these things. Because I said, in the words of my mother, with everything that she said, I can make that. I was like, I can do that.
Right.
So I watched some YouTubes, did what I needed to do, and started small. If you look at my, I think it's under bulletin boards or balloons now, the highlight, if you see where I started, that first one was this little tiny one that was back to school and the balloons. And then it's just every single month, it just morphed into this crazy, it just got crazier and crazier and crazier.
Was that the one that said like rain or shine or something?
Oh, that was my favorite one. Yeah. Last year I was dead set on doing an LED cloud. Okay. And so this is the person that's not creative, right? This is the person that was in tears saying, can I be creative? Please help me be creative. I just want to be creative. That's what I feel like I need for my heart right now.
And it was right there.
Right. It just like unlocked, but through the flowers, you know, then became the design. I've designed some gardens. I maintain some gardens down south here. You know, so
this one right here,
doing the garden. Yeah, I've done stuff here, right here. So, you know, just maintaining the gardens, and then that turned into the, you know, the balloons that then came into a situation where I had a friend that was throwing a party, or we had a Halloween party last year. And I was like, I want to do a charcuterie board for this. And my girlfriends were like,
I'm sorry, I'm an idiot. What's a charcuterie?
So charcuterie is like meats, cheeses, vegetables, an appetizer tray, you know, something like that.
Yes.
So, and I said, you know what, I want to do this for this party. And a couple of my girlfriends said, we don't want to do it, but we'll put in for the food and the stuff that you need, because to do a really good one, you need a lot of food.
This is the Italian side of you, right?
Yeah,
like
for
this
sure.
is like all the meats, cheeses.
Cheese, yeah, all that fun stuff.
I love that stuff. I'm on a diet right now, and you're getting me really going.
It's good. It's very good. But yeah, so I made a Halloween one, and it was so well received. And I just watched a couple YouTubes and kind of got some inspiration, and then took it out on my own, and kind of did my own thing with it. And I did a dessert board and a charcuterie and brought that over, and it was so well received. Well, then a couple months went by, and I had a girlfriend that was running for school board, and so we were going to have this big party.
Right.
And we were like, what are we going to serve? How are we going to do this?
Right.
And it was at my girlfriend's house. She had just built this gorgeous house with a huge island, waterfall island, like right in the middle, a double island kitchen, and the one was just a flat surface.
Right.
And I said, we're going to turn that into a charcuterie board.
So you made the island, the charcuterie.
We turned the island, the entire thing. I think it's like a 12-foot island. We turned the entire thing into a charcuterie board.
So this person that's been praying for creativity sounds like you've got droves of it, enough for anybody. What are your goals, your ambitions, your dreams? You've got a lot of stuff going on. You got a ton of freaking energy. I feel like you could run through this wall right now.
Well, I'm glad I put that image off because, I do feel tired sometimes.
Oh my God. Did you have like a triple shot of...
Well, it's running after the kids. I think that definitely takes it out of you. But I don't know. I'm very excited about the opportunity with a podcast / talk show, kind of thing. That's something I've always, obviously, I did the news when I was in high school. That's part of the reason why, they voted that for me, because I did the nightly news every night. I was up with another friend of mine doing the announcements for the day on camera.
Right.
And I was very comfortable. I love the camera. I love being on camera.
Really?
Yeah, very much so.
Oh man, it took me a while. I didn't even want to be on social media at all.
Really?
I did it strictly for monetary purposes. Yeah.
Well, we're happy that you are, because you really give some unbelievable tips. I mean, there are a lot of times, and kudos to you for putting so much of this just like wealth of information of these things I never would have thought of, like the Turo stuff.
Right.
Is that Turo, the cars?
Yeah.
I mean, things like that. I love how you're always just kind of like throwing different things up there for people to, something resonates with people, what I mean? To like the thing that they say, wait, I can do that, and be able to do things. You and Andrea have inspired me so much with the Airbnb thing and the, looking at different properties to see, how that can work. I'm
gonna give you an idea that I have that I think we may be able to put something together. So I had you just mentioned Turo. We talked about Airbnb.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this show and you're an app developer, I've always thought, and I think you're going to agree with this, tools are so expensive. Like if you want a Skag mower, how much should your Skag mower cost you?
A little over $5,000. That's including the striping kit, though.
That's an inexpensive Skag mower, from what my understanding.
Well, that's the residential, so that's like the low, because I don't have a lot of space. I only have a few spaces I can put these things. So, and I've got my mule too, which is the my workhorse, my my UTV. So in one garage bay, I have the mule and my mower. So unfortunately,
I was literally thinking you actually had like a donkey or something.
I know that's what everybody thinks I love. That's why I had to clarify. But I had to put both of those things in one bay.
Right.
So, but I'll tell you what, for like anybody who's a homeowner, you don't need more than that. I mean, if you look at my stripes, I mean, I hate to say this, but I think that sometimes they're better than the professional mowers.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're thick, they're like solid. And I think a lot of it has to do with not only having a great mower, because I mow sometimes and post pictures where I don't even have the striping kit down, but I think it's that striping kit's money, because it just... And if you don't know how striping kit works, as the mower, the power of the mower is pulling all of the grass up to cut it, right? When we're going over it. So then you've got a weighted bar with rollers on the back of your mower that's then pulling it up and then laying everything down as you pass over. And it's actually the light that reflects the different directions that the grass is laying to give you the stripes.
Right, because I used to do one of those push ones where it has the spirals on it and stuff like that. If you know those old school mowers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they always had the back, that little rubber piece.
Yes.
So that's what you're talking about.
Yes, absolutely. So on the bigger mowers, they have the rolling bar that's heavy. I mean, I want to say that bar is maybe 40 or 50 pounds. It's heavy, but it does the trick. And so then that's what you're looking for. Now, the thing with the stripes, though, is that you have to have like lush, thick grass to get the nicest stripes. So if you're mowing in like a pasture or like weeds or, whatever, you're not, and that's what I always tell people too. At a minimum, get the weed control on your property.
Right.
So at a minimum is just weeds. You don't have to do anything
What do you recommend for weeds?
Well, to be honest, I use a company that comes out and does different treatments for the weed control.
Okay.
But, there's so many different treatments. I mean, even something as simple as weed and feed, will work.
Okay.
So if you're working with a small residential area, anything that you can find at Lowe's, Home Depot, places like that they're going to have exactly what you need.
Right.
That within just one season, actually,
Right.
you can. And I have some neighbors that have used the weed and feed, solely weed and feed, and their grass is great. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
fine. So if you're able to just do that at a minimum, you'll see a huge difference in your lawn in just one season when it's not spreading, because those weeds get in, they crowd out your fescue, the grasses you do want.
Fescue.
They crowd them out.
Blue fescue.
Yeah, well, yeah. I use triple blend tall fescue, and then it's also mixed with there is Kentucky bluegrass in there. So
Kentucky bluegrass.
gives it that nice emerald green, look.
All right, so I want to throw my idea to you.
Let me hear it.
All right, so we got these apps, we've got Turo, we've got Airbnb, and we're in the shared economy, in my opinion. Everything's shared, right?
Sure.
Tools. Mm-hmm. You got to go to Home Depot, you got to go to United Rentals, you got to go to Sunbelt Rentals. But a lot of guys have tools. They bought like a tractor, or they bought an excavator, or they bought a generator, or just anything like a drill. I think if there's an app created where just very similar to Turo, where you can take a picture of your lawnmower, your Skag lawnmower, and offer delivery services just like Turo is, right? And say, you want to rent my lawnmower? I'll deliver it to you. You can rent it for this job, so you don't have to go to Home Depot. You don't have to go to wherever else and do it, and I'll bring it to you in that whole service and that insurance. And then, it could go as low as, like, I don't know what the lowest tool is. Obviously, you're not going to want to rent out one of those $4 pieces of...
Sure.
But if you're talking about like tractors and you're talking about like excavators and stuff like that, like where you want to actually use it yourself versus hiring someone, I just felt like, man, if we could get a tool rental site, it would change the game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's lots of different tools. I mean, even like when you think about sprayers and, weed eaters and edgers, like think about an edger. You're only using an edger once, maybe twice a year, so then you're holding that equipment in your garage. When those things could be used, you
could make money off of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rather than it being a liability, you could rent it out to somebody who needs to use it for that one time, and then it changes the game.
Well, and especially these guys. I mean, I'm obviously at the low end of that, of having the equipment and stuff, but like I have plenty of friends that have
everything,
the huge barns, and they're just stacked full of stuff that they've needed at some point or another. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's a need for something like that.
So if you're talking to our young people out there right now, what words of wisdom can you give people to inspire them?
Well, that's a really good question. I think I would say, don't be afraid to try things that come in your path.
Right.
And if something comes in your way, if you're looking for it and opportunities present themselves, then you can't be afraid. I hear so many people, they're like, oh, I would love to have a property like yours, but I can't keep plants alive.
Right.
I've killed like 1,000 plants. You know what I mean? Like, it's just part of the game, you win some, you lose some.
Right.
So I think that just having the, ability to say, I'm not going to let that little voice in my head that always tells me I can't.
Right.
I'm going to just do it. Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. I'm telling my kids all the time, you can do it. You need to do this, you need to do that. Be strong. Like, listen to your intuition, listen to your voice inside of you. That's what's going to guide you,
Right.
And so I think just telling people, like, try things, and sometimes you're going to win and sometimes you're going to fail, but that's life, right? That's with everything.
Totally.
So, and just trying those things and paying attention to the signs, keeping your faith, be a good person.
Right.
If you're a good person, probably good things are going to come to you. I'd be willing to bet more good things are going to happen to good people than good things happen to bad people.
That's 100% true.
It's like, just keep the faith, be a good person, be kind, and then follow the path that's laid out in front of you, because we all have one. If you look back at your history of the last 10 years or 20 years, you're like, oh, that's why that happened. So even when we're going through really bad things, with everything
that was powerful right there. I just kind of like got goosebumps when you said that.
Yeah. I mean, because it's true. Like, everything happens for a reason. And knowing that too, everything happens for a reason.
Right.
The good, the bad, the ugly, everything.
Right.
So knowing that you shouldn't let anything stop you. Like, that's one of the things that in my future, I hope that I am able to have more of a platform to be able to help people.
Right.
To be able to teach them that, yes, if she can do it, if this girl who knew nothing, who had no business doing anything that I've done, is able to do that,
right,
then I can do it too. I'm no different than anybody else.
That's so funny, because that was actually going to be the name of our book, the Millionaire Mentorship one we have in front of us. It was going to be, if I can do it, so can you. Because I'm just like you. I'm just like an average person.
A normal person, yeah.
I'm not saying you're average. I'm saying that...
No, I am. But I am. There's nothing different about me that someone else can't do. It's just I went out and did it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So I'm going to talk about two things to kind of wrap this up on that point. So first thing I always talk to people is take freaking action.
Yeah.
Like start today because tomorrow's not guaranteed.
Sure, absolutely.
And then the other thing that really hit me with you is mindset. What you put in your brain, what you feed your brain, just like a freaking plant,
Absolutely.
is going to, if you're feeding yourself shit all day long, whether it's like you're binge watching on Netflix or you're doing nothing that adds any value other than stimulate your senses, like gives you if you're binge watching porn, which a lot of people do because it's so available, like you're not adding any value in your life. You're not stimulating your brain. You're better off subscribing to our podcast and listening to stuff like this that actually adds value.
Absolutely.
So, and the reason I really want to beat down on this point is your mindset shifted.
Absolutely. Well, I started practicing this thing that I read the book by Joe Dispenza, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And that was a huge turning point for me when I read that book, and then also Wayne Dyer's...
Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Oh, yeah. Magic. I mean, everything he said. And that was another big part of my turning point with all of this. I was listening to those things. I was feeding my mind power. And so what happened was I turned into this whole thing, which I constantly preach to my kids. I substitute teach at the school. I teach this to the kids that I teach. And I say, we all have a weak mind and we all have a strong mind.
Right.
It's a matter of choosing which mind you want to use for the decisions that you make. So we all know what's right and what's wrong. And activating that strong mind is hard. It's not easy to do things you don't want to do.
Because your mind knows you. It knows your weaknesses.
Yep.
It knows... Like, I follow a guy, I don't know if you're familiar with him, called David Goggins. So he was like a really fat guy, and he went into the Air Force. He had to lose 100 pounds in like 5 months. He lost it, and he's like, my calling now is to be a savage. My calling is to tell you to stop making excuses for yourself, to stop giving yourself that whole thing. And it all boils down to, like you said, mindset and changing how you think. Absolutely. And he always says, do something that sucks every day. Like, whenever I'm running, which I'm trying to always get in shape and stuff like that, and I always say to people, nobody likes freaking running. Nobody. I don't know anybody who likes running.
I'm definitely not a runner.
Yeah.
There's no running. People ask me all the time, what do you do to work out? I'm out in my yard. That's my gym. It's being out in the yard. So something as simple as that is what also helped me lose a ton of weight. Because I was so active, out in the yard, just constantly doing things, lifting, walking back and forth. I'd have 20,000 steps on my Fitbit, by the end of the day, just from being in the yard. And it just,
mindset. With the new thing going on in terms of all these sponsorship opportunities coming to you, do you see yourself, like, what would be the dream?
What would be the dream? I would love to have an outlet to be able to continue to grow and learn and be able to teach other people.
Right.
All of this, like even the things I've just talked to you about, like with the books and the this and that. That stuff's the most important.
Do you see yourself writing a book?
I don't know, maybe. I mean, I love to write, so maybe one day. But I would love to just help people overcome the times in your life where you feel like there's no other way.
Right.
Like where there's just, this is it for you. And it's over. And this is what life is. You know what I mean? And give people the ability to figure out how to tap into their own interests and their own dreams and their own things to be able to find happiness. Because as much as there's still a huge hole in my life, like I'm happy, I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but like I'm actually a happy person. Like I'm happy now that I've been able to come through all these different things, because had my parents not had that accident, I never, ever would have found any of this.
Right.
I never would have found any of the things, from the books to the gardening to the cake decorating, the charcuterie boards, the balloons. I never would have messed with any of that stuff because I didn't need it. Right. So now that void is, I still have a void there, right? But I've found other ways to be able to make every day a happy place to be.
Right.
And that's so important.
You filled your void. It's almost like your parents passing away allowed you to be your best self for like
it's the craziest thing, because it's so like, you know what I mean? You wouldn't think those two things.
Yes.
Like it's allowed me to find myself.
Right.
Something as tragic and horrible as that helped me find who I am. Right. That if that didn't happen, God only knows what I would be doing today. You know, probably nothing. Probably living, way below where I have the ability to be.
Well, I'm sure they're super proud of you.
Thank you.
And I know that you're an amazing person. I appreciate you taking the time to spend all your time on this show. Is there anything else you want to drop on? Gardening tips, anything that you want to drop on our audience that could help them if they're in a garden, if they're struggling? Maybe if they're struggling with something that you went through.
Yes, I do, actually. There's something I do want to talk about.
Please.
So one of the things that was a huge catalyst that really helped me get into a lot of different things was the master gardening program.
Okay.
So anybody can become a master gardener.
Okay.
I know it sounds very intimidating, but master gardeners are people that are newbies all the way to experts. No one person knows everything there is to know about a garden. There's just too much, So the master gardeners program is a 16-week course. It's 3 hours a week. And I found tremendous therapy in that. I went with one of my girlfriends. We had little kids, and we would go down, and it was from 7:30 to like 9:30, 10 o'clock. And we would go down town, and we would take these classes together. And we met a whole slew of other crazy gardening people.
14 weeks?
16 weeks.
16 weeks.
16 weeks. And it was like $275, I think, was the class. Because I was looking, I was like, well, I want to learn more. Like, how do I learn more? I want to take a horticulture class. I want to do this. I want to do that. Like, totally, 0 to 60, which is what I'm known for. So I was like, I'm just going to go back to college for this, And then I was like, well, I can't really do that. So then I found this program. And so it's usually through the university extension. So back in the day, the farmers, when the light bulbs came out, they had to teach people through an extension. So the university would send the light bulb to the farmer. They would teach the farmer and his wife how to write the light bulb. Then the farmer would have all of his friends over, and they would make an extension. So it's through the extension office of your local university. So for instance, ours is Mizzou. University of Missouri is who carries the Master Gardener program here. And so it's downtown, it's in Platte City, it's in Jackson County. They're all over here.
Wow.
And then you just go take these courses. The first year, you do 40 hours of volunteer work.
Right.
And then every year after that, it's 25 hours. So, but you can also do things like one year I grew flowers for a community garden.
Right.
So I grew all the plants in my basement and got everything going with my indoor grow room. And then that filled my time to continue in my, to be active as a member. But it's been great. And I've met some of the most wonderful people that have given me different inspirations, like doing the indoor gardening and doing all that stuff. Like that came from master gardeners and meeting some of these people, the house plants, things like that, swapping and trading, with all these different people. So it's a great program that if you are interested in gardening at any level or want to know anything, really it covers turf, it covers pests, it covers vegetables, it covers all those different things in 16 different classes. And then you can come out.
It.
You should. And you can come out, especially now that you have a property that you're trying to like develop and manage.
One more thing on my resume.
Do it.
I'm a master gardener.
I know. I love it. That sounds really good.
It sounds cool.
It sounds great.
16 weeks. And how long do you got to go for?
So it's 16 weeks. And then every year after that.
But how many hours in those 16 weeks?
So it was supposed to be 3 hours every week, one night a week. So it was every Wednesday when I went.
Okay, so that's not too much of a commitment.
And it ended up being like 2.5, like, 2.5.
30 hours times 3, so 48 hours and you're a master gardener.
Yeah, and they would bring in different speakers, which was really helpful. So they bring in people from, the one thing with master gardening is it's all scientific research-based information. It's not Joe-ho on the internet telling you this and that. It's like scientific information.
I'm interested. I totally am interested.
You should do it. Everybody should do it, to be honest with you.
Right.
If you have any interest in growing anything, it's just really a great program with valid, people come in from University of Missouri, like the people that do all the grass testing and all that. They came to do our turf lesson, which was amazing.
Well, I think that we're here today to pay homage to three people who influenced our lives, your parents and my grandpa, man. I can't tell you, like, I saw his dying breath, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, it's one of those situations where I was like, man, if I didn't go there and see him, and he was such a big influence in my work ethic. And he was you'd like this. He was one of these old guys who worked his ass off. Like he had clients for 60 years. You know what I mean? And then I remember we used to always go out to breakfast together, and like he would empty his shoes of dirt on the restaurant because he was just a landscaper. Yeah. But I think that point of saying that is that you can put yourself out there and become and pay that legacy forward. Absolutely. And that's what you're doing.
Yes, I just want to make them proud.
Yeah,
for all the work, now being a parent,
right,
and knowing how much work goes into these kids.
Right.
The best thing I could do every day is just live to make them proud. And that right there is going to be a great path for me to be on.
Well, I think you're doing that. I think you're dropping a ton of knowledge on everybody here. I really appreciate you coming in, spending your time with us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Make sure you guys subscribe. Make sure you guys share this video. Make sure you watch it in its entirety. Make sure you definitely share it with a friend, and make sure you follow Melissa, the Fancy Flower Farmer, on Instagram. You're also
Instagram, Facebook. I am on TikTok.
Cool.
And all the good stuff. So.
All right. Peace.